James Harden traded to the LA Clippers finally after a summer of drama. He had just reported back to the 76ers, but it was not to be. They ultimately decided that a few players on their team were performing so well that it didn't make sense to reintegrate Harden, and they were willing to accept the Clippers package that did not include Terrence Mann. We're going to break this down for both teams. But first, let's just admire how shitty the official 2K Sports roster is as I cycle through the positions. We've got point guard. What the fuck are we doing here? James Harden at point guard with Russell Westbrook, along with Terrence Mann. Oh, God. The Clippers don't have any active two guards on their roster besides Paul George. PJ Tucker is the four with nobody else. Oh boy. Can you imagine releasing video game content this shitty in the year 2023 after 20 years plus of making making video games? We're gonna hop into my roster, where I updated the positions for all these teams to reflect what they're going to be doing depth chart wise. So James Harden, just diving in on him a little quickly. 21 points per game, led the league in assists with 11, 6 rebounds per game. Not the best shooting percentage, but he is a high usage rate player, and that probably is going to go down with the LA Clippers. They are built a lot differently than the 76ers were, where Harden was essentially the second option on the team. Here, he's probably dropping down to third behind Kawhi and Paul George. It's going to be very interesting to see how they integrate Harden and kind of balance that out. Russell Westbrook, in particular, normally you would expect that Westbrook and Harden wouldn't be able to play together. However, Westbrook actually cleaned up his shot selection quite a bit. So that I have hopes that he would be able to continue starting alongside these guys. But you can see actually that I have James Harden as the highest rated player on the Clippers. Some of this just has to do with formula. He was a point guard with the Sixers last year, where he rates a point lower. And I think changing the positions for Kawhi Leonard drops 2 points when you switch him over to power forward, which I believe is what's going to happen. But let's just cycle through everybody. Paul George and the rest of the Clippers. Let's talk about what they were doing prior to this trade. So Paul George averaging 27 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Kawhi Leonard 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. They aren't near the playmakers that James Harden is. So now that they have another playmaking guard in their lineup, you would think that probably both of their assist rates are going to drop, but hopefully it should lead to more efficient shots for both of these guys. They are more known as scorers rather than playmakers. Westbrook, as mentioned, averaging only 11 points, but chipping in 7 rebounds per game and 7 assists. And most importantly, shooting 60% from the field, as opposed to, what did he shoot last year? 44%. And you can see the 11 points down from 16. That's actually a positive development because, again, with Westbrook shooting so inefficiently, you would rather have a player averaging 11 points on 60% shooting than a player averaging 16 points on 44% shooting. He was able to integrate himself as a key role player on this team. So hopefully he's able to continue that. Ivica Zubac rounds out their starting five, averaging 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. Doesn't really get any touches outside of like putbacks and whatnot. He doesn't get post touches or anything like that. So his point production is more or less going to continue to be defined by how many putbacks he can get or how often teams leave him open when they guard the other perimeter players on this team. James Harden is good at finding lob threats, but Zubac is not really that type of player. So that'll be keep an eye on that just a little bit. And then the bench players on this team are probably the ones who are most affected by this rather than the starters because there will be some shifting roles. Norm Powell, as we shift over to, let's just cycle through by position. So Bones Highland has been getting the bulk of the backup point guard minutes behind Russell Westbrook. And he's been playing really well, averaging 16 points in only 22 minutes per game. You would think that Harden would probably take a lot of those minutes as they do similar things. Bones is a great step back 3 point shooter, as is James Harden. So maybe he drops out of the rotation for Harden, or maybe they play them both together. You get the versatility of going all offense with this team. The Clippers have a lot of different matchups that they can utilize in any given game or series. Shooting guard, Norm Powell is the backup for Harden, and he was also playing really well off the bench, 14 points in only 22 minutes per game. But now that they have another star guard in the mix, that probably would reduce his minutes, but we'll see. He does play a little bit of three as well. And Terrence Mann, he profiles as the backup wing on this team. Obviously, he's been hurt, air quotes. Not sure if he was not playing because they were keeping him sidelined just in case he got included in the trade, as I anticipate that's what they were doing with Marcus Morris this year, as he was not injured and just getting DNP CDs. But even if Mann does have a hurt ankle, he should be back in the rotation in short order. He probably is, his playing time is probably fine, as we'll get to in just a second. Kawhi Leonard, I guess I should actually note that I move Paul George from the 2 to the 3, which is his natural position, and he was already absorbing most of the backup minutes behind Kawhi Leonard. And I ultimately moved Kawhi Leonard to the 4 because the Clippers decimated their power forward depth with this trade. And yeah, Kawhi already plays like the 3 and the 4. He's getting a little older anyway, so might as well make the shift. He's got great strength for a guy his size anyway, and this is kind of like the average size for a modern power forward anyway, so why not? PJ Tucker, he joins this team, was starting for the last few years, but I think he's cooked. He did not produce at a high level last year, only 3.5 points per game. This Miami season with the 48% shooting, definitely a bit of an aberration. I would expect more, these last couple seasons is more or less what I would expect for him with the LA Clippers. At age 38, I probably would just be playing Terrence Mann over him. I'd just be using Terrence Mann as the backup 3 and 4. And then Mason Plumlee still backing up and Visa Zubats. But because, again, looking at the power forward position, what the Clippers sent out was Robert Covington, who was averaging 3 points per game in 23 minutes, and then Nicholas Batum, who was also averaging 3 points per game in 18 minutes, 41 minutes total. So Tucker isn't going to get those minutes. He's not going to get 41 minutes per game. I anticipate that, obviously, you're adding James Harden to the mix. He probably is going to absorb all of that, and we're just shuffling the deck position-wise. I expect Terrence Mann to get all of the backup minutes at the 3 and the 4 rather than PJ Tucker, and that should probably balance things out and allow Bones and Powell to keep their jobs. Essentially, Tucker absorbs Nick Batum's role as like a small ball 5 in certain lineups, but they could also use Terrence Mann as a small ball 5 as well and just roll out these death lineups with Westbrook, Harden, George, Kawhi, and one of either Tucker or Mann, depending on how much they want to exploit in anchor center like Rudy Gobert or whatever. But that's essentially what the Clippers look like. And let's head on over to the 76ers and break them down. And again, as mentioned before, they ended up moving on from James Harden because they kind of replaced him internally. A lot of guys on this team were playing well. Why mess with a good thing? Joel Embiid averaging 31 points, 10 rebounds per game, 7 assists, 62 true shooting on 37% usage, first in the NBA. He was second last year. And he's upped his assist rate to 40%, which is a tier below like the Nikola Jokic's of the NBA. There aren't many centers, I think anyone besides Jokic actually, who's put together an assist rate of 40%. So if Embiid is able to maintain that, great for him. That's definitely going to keep him in the MVP conversation, make him a more deadly weapon in the playoffs. But ultimately, they were running things through Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Um, they just ended up not needing James Harden. Um, so actually, on that note, let's actually boost a couple ratings for players based on their performance through the first 3 games so far. We are going to boost Joel Embiid's pass vision rating by 10 points, and then Tyrese Maxey. Looking like one of the most improved players this season. 30 points per game, 6 assists, 69 true shooting, 26 usage rate, 26% assist rate, which is up from 16% last year. 56% three point shooting is not sustainable, but he is getting to the line twice as much as he was last season, 7.1 free throw attempts per 36 minutes from 3.8. And a lot of that is because he's on the ball more than he was last season, taking 8 pick and rolls per game compared to 6 last season. So we are going to boost a bunch of his ratings because his foul rate went up. We're going to boost his draw foul by 15 points. His pass ratings his assist rate went up by close to double. So we're going to boost his assist rate, his pass vision by 10 points, his pass accuracy and pass IQ by 5 points. Worth noting, he's got a 3 point something assist to turnover ratio. I think like 19 assists versus 3 turnovers. So he has, on top of scoring 30 points per game, he has also taken care of the ball. We're going to boost his ball handle rating because he is creating more off the dribble. And missing 2 more. His rebound rate has also gone up. So plus 10 there. And because it appears that he's entered the all-star tier of player. Obviously, if you're averaging 30 points and 6 assists, I would consider you an all-star tier player. So I'm going to boost his intangibles 10 points to put him in. That's essentially how I grade intangibles. 99's a all-time great MVP caliber player, 90's an all-star level player, and then 80's are starting caliber players. And don't worry, Kelly Oubre is not a all-time great. It's just I use intangibles also as a way to mitigate the overall rating imbalances that this game has. Shooting guards generally rate too low compared to small forwards, and centers that average a lot of rebounds are going to have a way too high of an overall rating. So I stick to a scale and then I adjust based on position essentially. But rounding out the rest of this team, Tobias Harris and Kelly Oubre both stepped up offensively in the absence of James Harden. 20 points per game, only 15 points per game last season for Tobias Harris. He's somebody that essentially took a back seat once they acquired James Harden. Saw his points per game slip over the last couple of years, but he's still able to score efficiently. So losing Harden kind of ended up being like addition by subtraction for this team. And then Kelly Oubre Jr. signed on a minimum deal late in free agency. He's been really good for the team. 19 points per game in 29 minutes and is shooting 50% from the field on 64% true shooting. It's that probably won't maintain based on, if history stands by it. But I think it's clear that the Charlotte Hornets are a garbage tier organization. So Oubre was just, doing everything he could. Being the go-to guy in a lottery team is obviously going to adversely affect your field goal percentage. And when you're surrounded by a greater talent like Joel Embiid or even now Tyrese Maxey, it's going to make your job a little bit easier as a scorer. So ultimately, I think the Sixers are actually a better team now than they were if they were entering the year with Harden. So let's look at the power forward rotation for this team and see how things have changed. I guess worth noting, also before I dip into that, Kelly Oubre, I changed his position from small forward to shooting guard just to account for some of the positional depth stuff. He was actually playing more at the 2 than the 3 already with the Sixers, although that was set to change once if James Harden returned, I guess I should say. And they got Kenyon Martin Jr., who is definitely a 3. So just for the depth chart purposes, I've got Kenyon Martin pegged as their backup 3, Oubre as their 2. But I don't think that Kenyon Martin Jr. is going to play a large role on this team. Probably limited minutes, comparable to like Daniel House. But yeah, let's analyze all the power forwards. Robert Covington reunited with the 76ers. He was traded by the team in 2018 for Jimmy Butler, and he just never got an opportunity with the Clippers. I think he'll be a starter with this team. He started the first 3 games for this team, the Clippers, but they did commit to Terrence Mann as the starter prior to that. But yeah, he saw his best seasons with the 76ers and then got traded, bounced around a little bit, kind of fell out of things in Portland, got traded to the Clippers, and then just never really able to get off Ty Lue's bench, even fell out of the rotation, only played something like 48 games last season. So I'm sure he's happy to return to Philadelphia, and he makes a lot of sense on this team next to Joel Embiid, as he is a good 3-point shooter. Not the same type of defender that PJ Tucker is, but he is a good team defender, and I think that he meshes well with Nick Nurse's style of defense that he prefers. And they also get Marcus Morris, who basically fell out of favor late in the year with the Clippers. He's been starting for the last few years, but he slipped offensively and defensively. We see he only averaged 11 points per game, which is his lowest in quite a number of years. And he only shot 43% over the last 2 seasons. He was a lot better in 2021, where he shot 47% from 3 and from the field. But he gives an offensive dynamic that the Sixers really haven't had the last few years at the 4. They've been operating with PJ Tucker last year, and then guys like George Niang prior to that. So he enables the Sixers to at least go with like an all offense lineup. And given that he's been a career starter, he also could end up in the starting lineup if they need additional scoring punch. However, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, as they already have Maxey, Harris, and Embiid putting up points. I do think he makes a lot of sense on this bench, where they have a lot of defensive role players like Patrick Beverley. Kenyon Martin Jr. doesn't create his own shot, and obviously Paul Reed won't either. So giving the second unit, Kelly Oubre and Marcus Morris, definitely gives them some playoff contender caliber depth, I think. And of course, the most important part of all these guys is they are all on expiring contracts, and that was part of why the Sixers ended up not accepting Terrence Mann, is they at least were able to get off of PJ Tucker's contract, which goes for another year after this one. The Tucker contract, once he didn't play so hot last year at age 38, so you kind of figured that the last 2 years of that are going to be kind of dead money, certainly not worth the $7 million or so that he was set to make. And then Nicholas Batum, probably in the last year of his career, he talked retirement at the start of the year, or at least his wife threw out the idea of retirement, and he kind of walked it back a little bit. But he hasn't been playing super well the last couple of years. Only 2.7 points per game on 18 minutes per game so far. But he's probably out of the rotation to start with the Sixers. He probably is going to be filling Danny Green's role. The Sixers did have to waive Danny Green in order to complete this trade because it was a 4-for-3 trade. The Clippers, I guess for what it's worth, open up a roster spot. Hey, they could sign Danny Green. They definitely could use another 3-and-D wing player. But Batum, he definitely does fit with Nick Nurse's system. It wouldn't surprise me if he also just played over Marcus Morris if they decided that Marcus Morris wasn't good enough defensively. And obviously, a low usage 3-and-D player at the 4 is essentially what you want next to Joel Embiid. But I do think that at the very least, Batum will probably play more at the 5, which is kind of what he did with the Clippers. He was their small ball 5. I can see him definitely playing small ball 5 over Mo Bamba, and he obviously gives them another dynamic. Maybe Paul Reed loses a little bit of playing time with this, as the weakness of Reed is that he is not a good three-point shooter, while Batum is. So keep an eye on that. Might end up having a Batum at the 5 rather than the 4. We'll see. I think the Sixers overall, um, they got 2 first-round picks for Harden. Maybe not the quality they may have wanted. They do have an unprotected first in 2018, so that's good. What will the Clippers stars be in 2018, 2028, 5 years from now? So Kawhi will be 37 and Paul George 38. So it could be promising picks. Obviously, the Clippers owner Steve Ballmer has no problems throwing around money in free agency to bring in replacements for those guys, but it's a worthwhile gamble, I think. And at least the saga is finally over, and we can move on with our lives and watch some actual basketball. Let me know in the comments how you think these teams fared, whether or not you think the Clippers or Sixers won the trade. Do you think that James Harden is going to start or come off the bench for the Sixers? Is going to be the sixth man on this team compared to a la what he did with OKC early in his career? Or is he just going to make them implode because there won't be enough touches to go around? And do you think that this moved the needle at all for the 76ers? Are they still a contender? Um, do you think that Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid can keep up the level of play that they've exhibited over the last few games? Let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for all future rating and roster-related NBA content that I'm going to be putting out throughout the entire season. Peace out.